a pleasure to be here to speak on the media in the era of generative AI, fears, opportunities, and impacts. I want to start with opportunities because I believe in talking about the positives first before we go to the negatives. But before we proceed, let's imagine a situation in which probably today is 21st of February 2027, a Friday, 9 p.m. And on our phones, we get a video showing a speech by Peter Obi, giving a short speech that he is withdrawing from the presidential race in support of, for example, Bola Tinubu, and or not even Friday night. Let's say Saturday morning, the election day proper, and such thing goes viral. We all know what effect that will have on the election itself. It used to be said that seeing is believing. When you see a picture, yes, this is actually what happened. When you listen to a video, yes, this person actually said this thing. When you era of AI, we go to the definition later on. We know that seeing is not believing. A picture can no longer tell 1,000 stories, but can tell you 1,000,000 lies. With some of the things which uh, we have seen. So that's the backdrop to what we're discussing this morning. Media in the era of generative AI. Now, if you look at these pictures, these were generated this morning using the one on the right was using ChatGPT. The one on the left was using Grok, which is the AI powered by X, formerly known as Twitter. The prompt used was to generate a picture of Bola Tinubu begging Peter Obi. That could be joined with the video I said. Say, okay, after Bola Tinubu pleading with Peter Obi decided to concede that his supporters should vote for Bola Tinubu. It will definitely have effect on the election. Either those who are obedient will decide not to vote at all, which of course affects whatever vote Peter Obi will get. Okay, or some may decide to okay, let me opt for Tinubu since Peter Obi has uh, directed us, quote unquote, to go for this option. Now, these videos these pictures, no, of course, we will not be able to see them properly, but when I looked at them, they were difficult to not believe that these actually happen. There are ways in which you can detect pictures that are fake and even videos that are fake. There are ways. But that is for you, the professional. When the video or picture gets out, people already believe it. You have to start doing damage control. And you may not even be able to control the damage. Because some people, even if they have doubts about what they're saying, their biases the mind is already made up because of their biases. This thing suits me. I'm not doing any critical thinking any longer because it suits my own bias. So what are we going to talk about? What is generative AI? The opportunities for the media, uh, some of the fears and challenges, impacts on journalism, and we give some recommendations. So AI generally, artificial intelligence, is systems, machines that can mimic the human, that can do what humans do, and also learn from whatever input is given and whatever they are doing. And give us something much more intelligent. Okay, before the era of generative AI, most of us didn't know about AI, but we have been using AI in different aspects of our lives. For the digital natives, the young ones here, or even those who are probably in their mid 20s or in their early 30s, I'm sure most of you, or most of us here, we've used Google Maps. How many of us have used Google Maps before? Before now? None of us has? Okay. Yeah, we use Google Maps to get to our locations. I can remember some years ago, I had to handle a project in Abeokuta. I don't like asking people for directions. So we're going to Present University. So once I got to Abeokuta, I simply use Google Maps to direct me. Sometimes it will lead you to the wrong way. It might end up leading you to a dead end. But in most cases, I mean, besides the fact that it leads you to where you're going to, it also gives you almost an accurate estimate of the time that it will take you. One of my trips to Abeokuta, when coming back, I told the driver that we will arrive at Ilorin at so time, this time range. And we got to the reality, the difference was just a minute. Just a minute difference. You know. Google Maps is the product of AI itself, okay, which most of us have been using even before the most popular, which is ChatGPT, came on board. For those of us who probably use maybe streaming services like Netflix, Prime Video, and the others, you'll see that the not Netflix, Prime Video, and YouTube. For those of us who don't use those streaming services, when you use YouTube, you will see that the videos recommendations you get are usually a reflection of what you've been doing. Okay, you watch what do they call this? You watch K-drama for females. You watch K-drama a lot. The video recommendations you get will be K-drama videos. Okay, for some of us who want to have a different taste of what our family what they watch on Netflix, we create a different account, create multiple users, so that you can actually get tailored recommendations for you. So what is called recommender systems, they also use AI. Those of us who shop online, probably on Amazon, you see that what is recommended is based on what you've been doing historically. Okay, so these are the kind of AI that come before. But for generative AI, what is generative AI? It's AI that creates content, text, audio, images, which are human-like. Okay, the text that is generated is as if it's a human being that is actually responding to the queries that you have sent. You will find it difficult to recognize the difference between what you get, for example, in ChatGPT, and what a human being actually gives you in response. Okay? For the practitioners in AI, you may be able to identify, with some clues. But for the general public, it's going to be extremely difficult to identify uh, what is generated using generative AI. Examples, ChatGPT, we know some of the examples. Okay. So, and what are some of the relevance in the media? The key relevance is automation, repeated tasks, things that do not need you to do critical thinking, are things that you can easily use AI for. Of course, we talk about some of the opportunities, some of the fears later on, but I'll be talking about them as I move forward. When it comes to terms of automation, so what does that mean for the professional? Whether you're a media professional or you're not a media professional like me, how do you stay relevant? You will stay relevant. One of which we know we mentioned automation now, is to upskill yourself so that you are not needed for routine automated processes that can easily be automated. Any process that can be automated, if that is the job you do, then the likelihood of you having a job is extremely slim. Okay. Let's say, for instance, what you do is you probably at Sunday evening, you go online, you collate the scores of the Premiership and the Nigerian Premier League, we call it, the Nigerian Premier League, MPFL. Sorry, I don't watch much of football, even though my team is Kwara United. Not Arsenal, not Chelsea, my team is Kwara United. So So you go online, you collate all those data, and you want to do some analysis. Okay, this is the person leading the league, blah 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 blah. These are things which journalists have to sit down to do. You don't need any critical thinking to know that Team A scored 2 goals, Team B scored a goal. That's 3 points and plus one. You don't need to. That doesn't require any critical thinking skills. It's something you can actually even give to a smart ESS1 student to do for you. So these are some of the things that you can use AI for. So if that is your job, I'm afraid you may not have a job in a station or a media organization that fully adopts AI. Okay, but what are the opportunities that you have? We'll get to that later on. So other relevance for the media AI is personalization. Um, Radio Kwara has a website. You can get news on the website of Radio Kwara. If you go to the website of Radio Kwara, for instance, uh, I don't know what obtains now. It's been a while, but I do not listen to the radio rather than visiting for news. But for some newspaper sites, let me just put it out, for some newspaper sites, when you visit the site, what you have? You have the same content. If I, Taofik, a computer uh, engineer, interested in AI, I'm interested in news related to Kwara, related to Ilorin. If I visit the website, the homepage is the same for me and possibly the vice chairperson of NUJ, who might be interested in something happening in Kwara North, interested in journalism, not in computer science. You get the same thing. But with AI, if AI is adopted by these media organizations, they will be able to personalize content such that what I visit often, what I read, will influence what is later displayed to me when I get to the homepage. In that way, you'll be able to actually keep the reader, because when you get to a site and you get relevant information, you'll come back again, rather than if you have to search and search and search. Okay, so if for Radio Power, for instance, now you have your website, you have news related to different parts of Power State, then what the person reads should be able to influence what he sees by the time he goes back to the website. Not just in terms of area of interest, it could be in terms of the length of content. There are some articles that are deep dive, with a lot of details. Some people don't want deep dive; they just want a summary. You know. So AI itself, AI also, going back to automation, can be used to do that. When you have deep dive articles, it can be used to easily generate summaries of the news item, which someone who doesn't want to go deep down can actually go to. Synthetic misuse. Um, Sorry, I want to show you something I did this morning. Peter Obi. Sorry, I'm repeating Peter Obi, and I think there are things most of us can relate to it. On having a secret meeting with Tinubu to support his 2027 election bid. Maybe I should even generate another one that is the one supporting Peter Obi, so that I don't look or sound biased here. So this is the report given. It's given Peter Obi in secret meeting with Tinubu declare support for Tinubu's 2027 election bid. It has asked me to put my name as political correspondent. So now, Abuja in Nigeria, what is shaping to be one of the most surprising political developments ahead of 2027 general elections. Former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi reportedly held a secret meeting with President Bola Tinubu at Presidential Relay in Abuja, and the rest like that. Now, I won't be able to show everything here, but as I don't think there's anyone here who doesn't use ChatGPT. This was generated in probably 5 6 seconds. Okay, meaning that you can generate fake news en masse in millions. Okay, it also means you can always for the media, opportunities for the media in the use of generative AI. We've already mentioned automation of routine tasks, transcription, summaries of earnings reports, and rest. We'll give some of these examples. Um, if you conduct an interview and you record the interviews and audio, you've recorded the audio, what do journalists used to do? I think what you do is you transcribe it, hand transcribe it. It takes you time to do that. Okay. We even with ChatGPT, with the free version, meaning you don't need to pay anything. You can supply an audio file and tell ChatGPT to extract the text for you, to do the transcription for you. This is a routine task. If your job is to transcribe, especially from English, if you record the audio in English, then most likely you may not have a job soon. If your job is to transcribe from languages that are not widely spoken, my apologies to those from Kayama or Barati, you may still have a job for a few years. You will still not have a job in some other years because those languages too will be enabled on AI. Okay, so these are some of the tasks you can use. And like I mentioned also, you have a long article, investigative article which you've written. You want to have a summary of the article. You can easily use AI to do such summaries. The other is deep research, investigative. It's not you are not investigating online, but you can use ChatGPT, for instance, to do some of your work when it comes to verifying some sets of information. Things that ordinarily you need to sit down, use Google, start checking from page to page. Okay, these are things you can do easily with generative AI. The other is multilingual reach. We all heard of the TBC example. I think someone mentioned that when we're about starting. And since the majority of those who are here are either journalists or those in the media space, you understand you already have such information. But how does that actually even apply to us locally here? If I'm correct, I think Radio Kwara still provides that Harmony FM. For those of us that are old, we call it Radio Kwara, Radio Kwara. Sorry. Midland FM. Sorry. Midland FM. My apologies. So when you listen to Midland FM, 5 p.m. is when you have news in the languages. Okay? Possibly the reason for that is maybe there are not enough people listening to the station for those languages. Not that there are not enough people to Midland FM. Midland FM to me is still the most popular station in Kwara State. Number one. So now, but imagine, okay, I think there's now Dotia FM in Kwara North, okay, and Kataki in I don't know where that is, in Ilorin. Okay. Now, let me use another example. Um, Recently, the office of the CPS, not recently, I think the last couple of years, has been doing something which I think is fantastic. Is that when there are opinion pieces by the state government on some issues, they do a translation in Yoruba and then send that, which actually helps those who don't speak or understand English to be able to relate with the message that the government is passing. But I think it's only been in Yoruba. I don't know if there are other languages. There are other languages. Okay, maybe because it's Yoruba I speak, that's why I'm only seeing that to Yoruba. But I think beyond just having those opinion pieces in other languages, even other press releases, I don't know if other press releases are also provided in other languages. If they are not from press releases, by the state government, if they are not, there are things we can easily explore using AI to translate movies, releases into other language, audio, because with all the development in technology, radio, as Dr. Lara would say, has refused to die. Radio has refused to die because of so many reasons, which those of you in media understand better than. Yeah, utility, you can be jogging, you can be doing fitness work like me, and be listening to radio. You can't watch TV. You can't read a newspaper if you are walking or even driving. Okay, even though there are tools now in which you can actually probably read something from your phone. So multilingual reach, we talked about the example of TVC, which we are all aware of. Another opportunity for the media is fact checking. Fact checking. Um, when you use ChatGPT or any of the ChatGPT, Gemini, I'm not sure of Grok, but underneath there's a disclaimer at the bottom. Anybody among the students? There's a disclaimer at the bottom. We don't use ChatGPT. Para police students. There's no disclaimer at the bottom, which is AI can be wrong. Fact check or check important information. I'm not going over my team now. That AI can be wrong. Okay? But nonetheless, even though of course AI can be wrong, we're expected to check the right information, which also goes back to some one key thing that we as practitioners, whether those of us in the media, those of us in practicing, anything, is that we need to further develop our critical thinking skills. You a major advantage of someone having a university or a tertiary education is that the person should be analytical and should have critical thinking skills, no matter what subject he or she studies. Okay, that's what will make education not to be a scam. And some say education is a scam. They are poorly educated. That's why they say such things. So, an opportunity for the media is that you can also create platforms which is actually used to fact check information. Like the example of Ubawa, which provides this fact check NG. I think there's fact check Africa, okay, which is created by someone in Ilorin here, Abidi or Lashuko. Okay, there are other platforms like that. Okay, deal with it. Yeah, there are also platforms. I mean, there are also portions or sections on AP News, for instance, dedicated to checking for fake news. So this is an area in which we can explore, and these jobs can be made easier for us by using AI. When it comes to fact checking fake news, Grok, which is the AI on X, I mean formerly known as Twitter, is really really good at helping with that. And we can also use to create new content formats, interactive questions and answers that's on news platform. Also to create accessible news is an area which a lot of people don't explore. Accessible news when it comes to using the internet, making your news accessible to those with physical challenges. Some people are colorblind; they won't be able to really read what is on screen. So these are areas we can actually look into. Um, then leveraging human advantages. One of the even with AI can be used. There are some sites that generate their content with AI, but there are some content you cannot generate with AI. For instance, we are here for this seminar, and somebody who is not here decides to write a report on what happened here. There is no AI that can generate that for him factually. Okay, the only AI can generate that for him or her factually. So things that I mean, as journalists, you may want to concentrate, or you may want to also focus on things that are happening live, and also be on ground. AI will not be on ground to actually report that at a certain place. flood happened and this was what caused the flood. It is until it's reported and I mean, puts it as part of his, the data it has before it can actually interpret it. So we may need to focus on those areas of live coverage and also on the ground reportage. Also, what AI doesn't have, which journalists have, is the contacts, the sources. The sources you have, AI does not have such sources. Of course, AI can quote a fake source, like the news item we created, but it's a fake source. It's not real source. So AI can't break news. AI can't break news. AI can give you breaking news because the news is already broken. So AI can give you broken news, but it cannot actually break news. At least for now, because when you have robots that are human-like and they can walk around like they also walk around, then AI will or may be able to break news. We should not look at something as being impossible. Okay, imagine telling someone 300 years ago that, 300 years ago, someone in the 19th century, okay, when the British came, that you can leave Lagos and get to Kano in 2 hours. We all look at you like a madman. And the person saying it at that time was actually mad because he's not saying what is realistic. But we know now that, if possible, you can even reach it in probably 30 minutes. You can't do that now with most of the flights we have, but there are other things being done. Don't let us work ourselves with that. So these are the AI anchors for TBC. I'm sure we are all aware. We don't need to. I wanted to show the video before, but we can check that ourselves later.
Leap into the future. We at TVC Communications are proud to introduce a new era in news broadcasting. But first, let me introduce my special friend, Olamide AI. Hi, Olamide Human. Is it time to come out yet? Yes, indeed it is. And you can bring your friends along. We are new AI anchors, speaking your language and sharing your stories. From English, good day. These are the news headlines to pidgin. Better country people. On a good evening. Yoruba. Igbo. And Hausa. Mutane na sanar da zuwa sunana Taofik Abdulkareem kuma kuna kallon We are bringing news closer to you, faster, smarter, and always reliable. And together, we are shaping the future of news for every.
Currently, from current.
So these are some of the areas in which I think I'm done with opportunities. We still, like I said, when we discuss, we'll still mention some of the things, some of the fears. So what are the fears? The key fear is job disruption. For those in government, one of the key things they'll be thinking is how will people not lose their jobs? They will be more comfortable if we are all gainfully employed. Only if people here want to be governor, commissioner, or the rest. Once people are gainfully employed and they can take care of themselves, they really don't care about who is ruling or how long the person is there. It's when there is poverty, when there is unemployment, that people are really, really concerned about who is there. And that's when some charlatans can come and deceive people. Don't worry, we are the Messiah you've been waiting for. So jobs will be lost, no doubt. But we don't have to be one of those that will lose their jobs. I saw a cartoon of somebody telling a horse that, okay, they are now carriages. You know that before they were just horses, one, two persons can be on the horse. But with horse carriages, the carriages attached to horses, more people can be transported from one place to the other. And the person was telling the horse, you will still be useful, you still have a job if you can move carriages. But if you are a horse that cannot move a carriage, then you will not be useful. So if you are such a person that can leverage on AI to be more productive, to use AI as your assistant, and that your work is not something that can be easily automated, you will continue to be relevant. If you are not that, you're someone that does just routine and job that can be easily automated, then you may not have a job. A friend of mine who, prior to the advent of ChatGPT, I think around 2021, hired a personal assistant. All assistants do for him, uh, help him generate his speeches, book his flights, and some of these mundane things. Okay, even prepare some of his slides, do some critical thinking in a way for him. He was paying the person 1.5 per month. That was what it was paying. But with the advent of the GPT now, they have to scale that down. He's paying the person now, the person is employed now, he's earning just half of that. Less than half of that is used to subscribe to ChatGPT Pro. Okay, which, okay, I want to, I'm traveling to, uh, say, I'm traveling to Turkey, for instance. So what's the cheapest flight? I can send that from ChatGPT. Help me find the cheapest flight with without a stopover, and I want it to be probably tomorrow or something. So the point is that that task which someone was doing for him, earning a lot of money, because these things have been replaced by generative. We haven't just talked about generative AI now, not AI generally, just generative AI. Okay, so jobs will be lost, but it depends on what value you actually bring into where you are employed. So things like AI anchors, which you've seen, okay, routine reporting automation, which you mentioned, give an example of when you collate data for, sports reports in terms of tables and stuff like that. Are things that AI will take over from people. No, but you don't have to be one of those who lose their jobs. If you retool yourself and you're able to make use of AI in a productive manner. Then the other key challenge is misinformation and deepfakes. A popular uh, character in deepfakes in this part of the world is the president of Burkina Faso, Traore. I'm not saying he's one generated, but there are tons of videos, of him speaking regional talk, you know, and it's extremely difficult to tell people that this is fake. Even there are some of the videos that on YouTube, the description is put there that this is AI generated. Yet we see hundreds, even thousands of people commenting and praising him. But by the time you try to point it out, I say, no, 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 you support the West, you are a Western stooge, you don't want people who develop Africa, blah, 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 blah. So this is one of the key uh, fears. Not just fears, this is what we actually see. In a report in 2023, they said about half a million fake videos were created and shared. How do you then know what to believe? If you're on WhatsApp group, if you're on WhatsApp group with some of our fathers, those in their 70s, 80s, I sometimes say that one of the fears I have about growing old, I pray I go old, older than this at least. One of the major fears is ill health, which is what comes with age. Yorùbá will say, ó fẹ́ dàgbà, ó fẹ́ bójú, ojú ẹ̀ ọmọ kan méjèèjì. But God is merciful. There are people who are old and at least if the physical health, if they don't see it, you will have seen some others, children dying, younger friends dying, and stuff like that. So one of the fears I have about growing old is They are also end up being one of those who will be sharing fake news on WhatsApp or whatever platform exists there, which we see with lots of elderly people. Why do they do this? It's not that they want to share fake news, but they grew up in a generation in which whatever comes out published is most likely true. You talk to parents, more of what they see online or what they see, they believe it. Okay, I remember I was telling my dad, who has a PhD, telling him about this news. It's not true. Especially it was about health. I mean, you take this for that, and stuff like that. And he asked me a question that, will somebody just sit down and, why will somebody sit down and generate this and send it? Daddy, this is what people do nowadays. So, okay, we're talking about misinformation and deepfakes. Okay, I think 2 years ago, the US election was last year, I think. Yeah. Last year, not 2 years ago. Before the primaries in the states, in the US, Democratic primaries, there was a deep fake audio of Joe Biden telling Democrats not to come out for the primaries. The primaries, their own Democratic primaries. When you listen to the audio, in fact, when I listened to it, I still listened to it this morning. While I couldn't tell the difference that this is not him speaking. Part of what comes in there is okay. It's an opportunity for the mass media to quickly debunk such news, you know. But we also have erosion of trust, deliberate erosion of trust in the mainstream media by some people, especially in the US, for instance, where even the president of the US keeps talking about fake news media, in which a lot of people now say, you don't know whether it's true or it's not true. So one of the I mean the fears challenges is erosion of trust. Okay, there is what is called the liar's dividend. You somebody deliberately shares fake news. Somebody deliberately shares fake news. He knows that some people will believe the news. He has already achieved what he wants to achieve. Okay? And people already do not even trust news that they read because there's so much fake news. So even if somebody ends up debunking it, there are still some people who will end up uh, believing such news. And then for those who don't have any source in which they can trust to know whether news is fake or it's not fake, they end up being cynics. When they see a news item, they see a video, they see a picture, they say, where are we late? So it makes it more difficult for you journalists to be able to provide even counters to uh, fake news. The other is impersonation, counterfeit journalists. There is, I can't remember when that happened, like a few years ago. A fake journalist was created who's French African. I can't remember the African country, maybe French Ivorian or something like that. Created by news by some people, and they used the profile of someone who actually lived, but the person is dead. It's like getting the NIN of a dead person and creating somebody else to take up that person's what word line is now? That person personal. You see a lot of that probably in the US of people stealing people's social security number and creating and using it for another person's intent. So this was created, there were news items generated, and it took a while before people knew that this is not a real journalist. Okay, one happened in I think it's Poland, a radio station in Poland. With generative AI, with AI, you can train your model on a certain voice. If you get a speech of, say, Buhari, for instance, and you train your model on it, you can make an avatar or you can generate audios that will sound exactly like Buhari. So what was done then, in this case, the Polish, that Polish radio station, they created an avatar for a reporter. Reporter didn't exist, an AI reporter, AI anchor, and also created another one for, I think probably a poet or someone. Person was late. Okay, the person is still late. So, and there was an interview. So imagine Radio Kwara creating that and getting training their AI on the voice of Buhari and conducting an interview. So people were incensed that okay, there was no respect for the dead. This person is dead. Why are you using his personal for things like this? This is where the issue of AI ethics come in. What and what? To what extent should we use AI? Should there be transparency? There should be transparency. When you use AI to generate news, do you give credit that okay, this was partly generated using ChatGPT? Will people also trust what you are providing if you provide such information? If you don't and they find out, will they trust you going forward? Another challenge, the key challenge is also the bias in AI content. Before going to that, a key challenge for us here locally in Nigeria is that we do not have a lot of information online. And all these AI, ChatGPT and the rest, they are trained on data in books and also what is already provided online. I was at a lecture in University of Ilorin. You were there. The registrar of JAM, Professor Lezi, was speaking about AI, and he said it's not factual. It doesn't provide correct information. Partly true. I don't disagree fully. But the example used wasn't the fault of AI. It's our own fault. The example used is information about the list of VCs of University of Ilorin. And ChatGPT did not give the correct information. If we list, if we go to ChatGPT now, I most likely say we should have a list of governors of Kwara states and the time they served. We may not get, I'm not saying we won't, we may not get the correct thing. Because in the case of University of Ilorin, as at the last time I checked a couple of weeks ago, there is nowhere on the website where you have the list of all the VCs. There's nowhere there. So how ChatGPT? I once checked I checked, and that same day when you spoke about University of Ilorin, I checked for Kwara Poly because it's also in Kwara and because I lectured there once. And there was no information listing even something so basic. Okay, so we don't put up a lot of information online. And we don't tell our stories. Nobody, they may even end up telling wrong stories about us. Not that they won't tell stories. Okay? So it's something we also need to look into. I'm happy that and this radio choir doesn't just broadcast the news and nobody will have FLT money. You have it archived online. And some of us are always check. If something comes up in Kwara and we are not sure, we go to Radio Kwara website to confirm if once it's there, we know that it's authentic. Once it's there, we know it's authentic. So there can also be AI also gives AI also one of the challenges is bias. Okay, I was so we all have biases. There's nobody that don't have bias. We all have biases. Okay, but we can try to be as objective as we can. Uh, when when I read political news and I want to know when Buhari was in power, and I want to know the view of APC generally, I usually go and check the nation. I know the nation will most likely report what APC is talking about. If I want to know what PDP is thinking, then I don't know now. I check this day. Okay, I check this day. If I'm looking for something objective, I mean, not really that biased. I check either Premium Times or the cable. I know there are other. I mean, I check. So we all have biases. Now, what AI generates for your content will be biased against you because of certain things. One is what was the data trained on? You mentioned the fact that we here we don't produce enough content that is put online. We don't write books. Wari, that person, so he didn't write any book about what happened during his illustrious life. Okay, fortunately for us, Babangida has written. Okay, but there are so many. I don't think one has written. One hasn't written. I mean, imagine the yeah, even General Adamba, who was part of so many things, he did not write. So how those coming later on, what would they know? It's whatever they are told. Just something that happened right in front of us, June 12th, and the role some people played. Some people came on board and started telling us that no, this person was not part of June 12th. I'm like, what should you me now? It's not that they told me, you know. Fortunately, there were some documents. It's my sweat so much. Okay. Fortunately, there are some documents, or not documents, there are lots of publications, books that have been written that people can actually refer to. But imagine nobody wrote anything. Of course, people were able to just come and write history to suit. So AI can react based on whatever, based on what the data is trained on. Then also on the biases of the people who created that AI, those who created AI, or created that AI. Nobody created AI. For those of us who know about a bit of history of AI, when BRB or Google came up, there were, Google, then what was trending in America was to be politically correct, liberal, unlike when Trump came with his own MAGA. So if you go to Plat and say, okay, you want to generate maybe a picture of the leaders of the US in the 19th century, if you put blacks, if you put those from the East, Chinese and the rest amongst them, but while the leaders actually black, they were all white, but it was trying to be politically correct, meaning that what is generating for you at the end of the day is biased because of what you actually want it to give you. Recently, after the um, Iran-Israel short war, those of us who are not there see it as short. So no, there's no word as short. I was trying to find out about um, if Iran actually struck military sites. Most of what we saw on TV were civilian sites, hospitals, and stuff like that. Which, of course, we know, of course, each country controls what comes out to present certain. So when I put my query on ChatGPT, it kept referring to. I said, okay, what military sites were struck by Iran? Verifiable, provide references. The first answer mentioned, okay, well, there are no records, or maybe there's nothing official that can be stated, nothing official. But that so and so hospitals were hit. Very hospital now. I said military sites. That bias is based on what the creators of captivity have actually put there. We cannot complain. We have to create our own before we start complaining. So, yeah, this is an example of generated. This was during the 2023 election, when people are saying that Peter Obi was with Abacha. Our friend there, younger person, was popping. You can't rely on if you have frequent online, people that you cannot rely on whatever. When they post something, if they tell my name is Taofik, I'll check again. My birth certificate, is it Taofik that is actually there? You know, I mean, someone like this. So he posted this AI generated image, And of course, the other party too posted for Tinubu that if you say Peter Obi drank tea with Abacha, we should not vote for him 2023. Tinubu too, he also drank tea with Abacha. Now, most of us here won't believe this, but imagine this got out to a lot of people, and not that imagine it getting out, it actually did get out to a lot of people. And there are people saying that, I didn't know that. Maybe they said he supported June 12. Maybe they said he doesn't deal with dictators in the case of Peter Obi. So, this also came out after Kwari died. Picture, he had generated picture of the president of a safe place. So, what are the impacts of AI? The newsroom is expected to be different, just like the newsroom got different with the advent of computers. Okay? The newsroom is expected to be different. When social media also exploded, I mean, people now, are watching uh, channels TV, TVC, and they read from their social media handles. With the advent of telephone, not just telephone, with the advent of what's it called, PSS, we now have calling programs. Yoruba used to say radio is Asoroma, but now Magwisi is live, live, not just later on. So with different tools coming up, of course there will be uh, changes. I was watching, or I watched a webinar, recorded webinar, was recorded just shortly after ChatGPT came up, and a journalist, the editor of a publication, online publication in India, was talking about how they've been able to make use of some of the advantages. And one of the advantages, they are a small media organization, they have probably like 10, 15 staff, reporters, that they can compete with national broadcasters because they can actually generate content fast. But it creates, or it created, I don't know if they solved it, it created a problem for that organization too. One of the key things they sell, their unique selling point, is that any article coming out would have been fact checked. I think that's expected that any article coming out of the media should have been fact checked, should have gone through the editorial process. But ordinarily, when you generate, say, in a week, probably 500 articles, now you can generate up to 4 5,000 articles. But it's giving them, there's a lot of difficulty in getting someone to actually fact check everything that is being generated. So you also have AI editors. Many of us we use Grammarly. I think most of us use Grammarly. We use Copilot on Microsoft Word. We can actually help to edit. Uh, to help us to edit whatever news we want to push out. For these ones, you can always specify the tone. You want a formal tone, and stuff like that. So, lowering traditional media boundaries, content saturation, you can generate a lot of content. I think traditional media boundaries have been blurred with the advent of social media, not just AI. AI is now just amplifying it. You have bloggers reporting news, and you can't hold them to any ethics because they don't belong to NUJ, they don't belong to any professional organization. They can actually publish whatever they want to publish. And unfortunately for us, we don't have a litigation culture. So people can go online and defame someone. And after defaming you and you decide to sue, people will still come and beg you. Please don't defame me. I'll spend my last couple to sue you. Because, if you took time to build your reputation, then you will not want anybody to, you will not even defame anybody. But our people, what will they do? Once they know who your father is, they go and beg your dad, and of course, culturally, you don't want to disobey your father, your parents. So now the other impact is that trust can erode or be rebuilt. Trust can be eroded. We mentioned that earlier. That when there's a lot of fake news, I'll give an example. Um, I don't want to mention, we just talk about defamation now, so I don't want to mention, but it's publication that is also popular for fake news or trying to spew news in a particular way. That the editor used to be with Premium Times, so those of us in may know that person. So whenever that publisher publishes anything, in fact I don't read it. I don't read it, or except okay, there's really not much information from other sources, like the recent news about the alleged resignation of the CBN,
NNPC.
NNPC. Thank you. I'm not at breakfast. Maybe that's why I'm mixing things up. So with NNPC, I read it. Okay, that I resumed this morning. I'm sorry, yesterday. I read it from that source. Ordinarily, I don't read news from that source because of the fact that there's been, yeah, there are times he has reported news, even with Premium Times, in which he had to apologize. You know, and trust can be eroded with a lot of AI generated content. You know that okay, this new generation is generating this with AI. How are you sure what's reporting is factual? Remember we mentioned about being able to use AI models to also generate uh, multilingual in multiple languages. Okay, you want to be sure that even with AI being used to transcribe or to generate content in another language, are there human gatekeepers who are actually checking that what is there is correct? Not just that it translates to Yoruba and that's it. Whether it's correct or it's not correct, we don't know what's being fed to us is uh, uh, accurate. So, but AI can also, we can also rebuild this with transparency, indicating that this content or this portion or this was actually aided with AI, but this is reported that wrote it as responsible for it. When you are transparent, people will tend to believe you. I had a policy as a lecturer when I lectured in Kwara. I'm not sure of something. I tell my students, I'm not sure, and wait until the next class. I want them to know that if I say this is it, then they should have confidence that what I'm saying is actually uh, correct. Because even if you bamboozle them and tell them, no, 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 what I said, there will be some brilliant chap, they will just say, that one you miss, yeah. So now the effects on democratic discourse, disinformation campaigns, um, the use of AI, the negative use of AI, generating deepfakes. Okay, we know like the scenario I depicted when we started. That imagine something like that happening on the eve or the morning of a campaign, and some other things we've seen on social media, things generated with AI that are false, okay, and has had effect on the discourse. I think there was one somebody reporting about I can't remember the year, what year it was, but there was an attack. There was, I think, herders, farmer crash in Benue State, and somebody generated a picture of cows, well-fed cows, being guarded by the military in Benue State. I can't remember the name of the place, but where that crash actually happened. And people were incensed online that the military are supposed to be, defending or helping people. They are now guarding cattle, you know, because the cattle where Buhari was in power. Quote and unquote. So these things can damage the discourse politically, can even cause security problem, if it's not quickly debunked, and the youths of a certain area see that, then they can go on a killing spree, because of something that actually didn't happen. Um, Another impact, economic shifts, cost optimization versus inequality. Um, the first thing we mentioned about the fears of AI is the loss of jobs. Now, do we prioritize people in employment, or do we want to save costs? For government, what's important is to keep people happy. So government we want to keep people employed. For those of us in the private sector, what is most important is to drive profits. Okay, so we may want to look at it the other way. It's not as if those in the private sector also do not care about people. I remember when a staff of mine was asking me that we give 4 months maternity leave in my office, fully paid. Like, this person is not at work, we are paying for the person fully. And I said, okay, if people don't give birth to children, who are we going to sell our services and products to? So of course, while we care about profit, of course we also care about people. But with the advent of AI, with advent of any new technology, while people are going to adopt because it's much more efficient, much more effective, and actually cuts a lot of costs. So, and like we mentioned earlier, what you need to look at is what role am I playing? What am I actually contributing to the organization at hand? If what you are doing is routine, repetitive tasks, and you are not close to retirement, it's better you go and upskill. If you are close to retirement, you can just wait it out. Okay? So then, of course, there are, like I mentioned earlier, also when I mentioned about the case of an Indian media organization, small organization, they leverage on AI to be able to reach the wider audience. So people can actually have startups around that area. So recommendations for us all. First is build AI literacy. As to our as build AI literacy, train journalists on tools and tools to use to detect fake, deep fake news and stuff like that. You can spend a whole day training ourselves on just one tool. Okay, so we need to retrain ourselves. Our organizations can actually do that, but it is you that want to keep your job and be relevant. So you should be at the forefront of actually retraining yourself. And the beautiful thing is that there are tons of resources online. There are tons of resources online. You don't have to wait for your organization to do that. But it's important if the organization also does what is organized around the mission and vision of the organization. There is tracking, verification, and fast checking processes. Not everything on AI, like AI itself to say, is true and correct. So if we use AI to generate content or to assist us with our news and content generation, what do we have in place to fact check these things? I can't recollect any example now, but there are times in which I've asked things I'm actually sure of, and ChatGPT will give me a different answer. As much as I say, no, are you sure? Why not check this thing? It then corrects itself and say, okay, I made this mistake. If I do not know, I do not have the information, I will not be able to easily correct that. One thing you can also do is while you use some of these generative AI tools, is you ask them to provide their sources. Okay, so if for instance, I think is it 1st of August or 1st of July was the birthday of the deputy governor. First of August. So, and we want to quickly write about the deputy governor. You don't have enough information at hand, you want ChatGPT to do that. You can tell it to provide sources. So you can actually cross-check those sources yourself. Okay, to see if they are correct and they are reliable sources. It's not just one blogger in Gusau writing about the deputy governor of Kwara State, who I'm assuming probably has nothing to do with Gusau, besides the fact that we are all Nigerians. Okay, so if you check those, if you request your AI to provide sources, you can actually see those sources, read them by yourself, and be sure that what you are pushing out is correct. Now, transparent labeling of AI assisted content, I think we mentioned that. Now, you can leverage AI to free time for deeper reporting, things that are that you know that you may just quickly fact check yourself and use AI to generate that, and then spend your time on the ground reporting, investigative journalism, talking to sources, talking to people on the ground, so that you can actually get news that people are interested in. One area which we can also look into, I think that has also been mentioned earlier, is that we can also focus on local news, that people, we actually want to know what is happening at that location. Rather than you are, you listen to 3 o'clock news on Radio Kwara, you listen to national news, you know what has happened, what is important in the state, but you also want to know what is happening at Ipata. You want to know what is happening at some other people want to know what is happening at the railway line at Ofa. If somebody wants to know what is happening at Kwara, these are news and information that AI cannot get for you. And there are lots of Kwarans in diaspora who want to know some of these local things. You can leverage on that. And importantly also is that even with AI, we still have our strengths as human beings. If you use an AI anchor, for instance, and the AI anchor is reporting news about the death of someone. For now, the AI anchor will just talk normally. I might even be smiling. So imagine when Buhari died and you have TBC AI anchor and he's replying that Ogago Buhari put the logo and he's smiling. That's going to be offensive. Okay, so with reportage from human beings, there's the case of empathy. AI doesn't have empathy for now. I keep saying for now because we don't know what will have in future. Okay, the context might not be able to put things in proper context while generating certain reports. And these are things that you are human, intelligent, creative, will be able to actually do. Then there's also the issue of ethics. What do we report? How do we report? What don't we report? AI, yeah, there is the issue of ethical AI. There are some things in which we ask ChatGPT, for instance, which it won't respond to. Okay, but you can't compare that with we that are human. Now, I don't AI with ethics, transparency, oversight. Invest in training and using collaboration with technologists. I think that is clear enough. Then you can also collaborate across media houses to share tools and standards. From a report I read, there were very few media organizations in Nigeria that have a guide on the use of AI. If we do have at Radio Kwara, I think it's something we can also share so that other radio stations and other media organizations can actually leverage on that to develop their own AI policy and standards. The collaboration is key. When you collaborate, you share ideas, and you also learn from. If you give someone your guide to implement, they will see some other things you should add to it, which will also help you to develop further. Then engage audience with media literacy and education. think that's a tough one for media houses and for those in academics. How do we ensure people are that they have media literacy? Okay. How are they? How do they easily spot what is fake and what is a deep fake? If people are able to do that, it reduces the pressure on media houses in providing, improving that what they're providing is accurate and authentic information. So we need to put in a lot of effort in that, in giving people media literacy. How do they know what is true? How do they evaluate quote unquote sources when they read or when we, not journalists, those of us who are not journalists, when we read news, how are we supposed to be able to spot that this thing is leaving some stuff out? What is reported here is the interpretation of the or the bias of the journalist. An example I always like using is when this issue of, I think that was before the 2015 elections, and News Agency of Nigeria had a report carried by some papers then that late President Buhari said he would turn 1 naira to $1. From the little interaction I've had, or from some of the interaction I've had with Dr. Laro, what I did check was that there's nowhere where he was quoted to have said that. You know, and we have people, journalists, award-winning journalists, who still stand on that mountain that Buhari said this. They've not been able to provide any video or audio. Thankfully, the issue of deepfake hadn't come up then. Possibly there would have been a generated video, I mean audio of him saying that. But I was able to say, no, 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 this is not true. Because there's no way where he was quoted to have said that. So when people are aware that okay, when they read news articles, what they should also look out for is, did this person, was he quoted verbatim to have said this? You know, but we still have a challenge in that area also. Recently, when the Falcons defeated Morocco, there was an item pushed, a news article pushed out by, I think it was Voice of Nigeria, by Voice of Nigeria, saying that the Falcon lost. You know, they said Falcon lost 2-0, and they were quoting what the coach, quote unquote, said. Probably, I don't know what evaluation has gone, I've not followed up on that news. But possibly the person to generate that news used AI to generate it. You know, Nigeria was losing 2-0, I think, in the first half. Okay, like I said, I was support Kwara United, even though I don't watch much of football anymore. So I saw it on Facebook. There was someone I followed on Facebook who was okay 1-0, 2-0. I'm like, oh, seems we've lost, given the fact that Morocco was even the host country. So maybe I assumed we are going to lose. So possibly the person generated that news item, and where he quoted the coach, he wanted to just replace it with what the coach will say at the end of the match. And unfortunately, the coach did out. Possibly, I don't know if that is uh, the case. So, of course, that also will create doubts about what you, for me, it will create doubts on what I read on Voice of Nigeria. I want to first check with another source. So, use AI to spread the not replace journalism core mission. And what's the core mission of journalism? If I'm wrong, you can correct me. I'm not a journalist. I think it's providing factual news to us, to we, the people, you know, which probably is verifiable and the rest of them. So AI cannot do that for now. AI can do that for now, which is why at the bottom of ChatGPT and Gemini, you see that AI also, I mean, AI makes mistakes, can make mistakes. I mean, please check for important uh, information. So, okay, so part of the recommendation for institutions and for policy, for those in charge of policy, develop internal AI ethics and usage guidelines. Organizations, news organizations should actually work on that. Upskill staff, evolve job roles with unions, collaboration. I mentioned that because we They are being hosted by Nigerian Union of Journalists. Those of us in the private sector don't like unions. So industry collaboration on standard and shared detection, I think that I mentioned also. Then advocate balanced regulation, address deepfakes and misuse. That has to do with more. That has to do more with uh, government. But usually, what happens in developed societies is that the practitioners I mean, self-regulation, okay, before government actually then comes in. So it's better that the Nigerian Union of Journalists and those involved in the media, journalists, mass media, and the rest, uh, sit down and look at how should we use AI, how do we ensure transparency, and not wait for government to impose what will end up existing, no matter how well intentioned government is. So, and also public media literacy campaigns, I think that have been mentioned earlier. So that's the long and short of the lecture on AI, the use of media and generative AI, opportunities, fears, and impact. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Please let's appreciate our guest lecturer once again.